Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching The World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of the hour. Prime Minister Keir Starmer says imposing tariffs on allies is wrong after President Trump threatens duties over Greenland. Trump plans 10% tariffs by February, raising it to 25% by June. 8 European allies condemn President Trump's tariffs threats over Greenland, warning they risk damaging transatlantic ties. The countries defend military drills in Greenland as non-threatening and reject US pressure. An Iranian official says at least 5,000 people, including 500 security personnel, are killed in nationwide protests. Authorities blame terrorists and rioters, with heaviest clashes in Kurdish areas of northwest Iran. The US Justice Department says it sees no basis for a criminal civil rights investigation into the ICE agent who fatally shot Renee Good in Minneapolis. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says standard internal reviews apply, while the DOJ is instead investigating Minnesota officials for allegedly encouraging protests. At least 39 people are killed after 2 trains collide near Cordoba in southern Spain. Over 70 are hospitalized as authorities launch an investigation into the cause. Denmark's Prime Minister says Europe will not be blackmailed by President Trump's tariff threats over Greenland. 8 US allies warn his plans risks a dangerous escalation as he does not rule out using force. Syria declares a nationwide ceasefire with Kurdish-led forces after nearly 2 weeks of fighting. The deal integrates the SDF into state institutions and restores government control over key regions. The Pentagon orders about 1,500 active-duty soldiers in Alaska to prepare for possible deployment to Minnesota amid large protests. The troops are on prepare to deploy orders in case violence escalates. We start this hour in Europe, and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has strongly criticised the use of US tariffs against allies, calling it completely wrong. Speaking on the escalating tensions over Greenland, Starmer emphasised that tariffs are not the right approach. He stated that any decision regarding Greenland belongs solely to Denmark and that the future of the region should be discussed calmly, not through economic pressure. The PM also underscored the importance of mature alliances built on respect and not pressure. Starmer reaffirmed the UK's close cooperation with the US on defence and intelligence and stressed that the UK-US relationship is crucial for global security. This comes, of course, as the United States, Donald Trump in particular, has stressed that the United Kingdom and 7 other European countries will face 10% tariffs from the start of next month, February the 1st, due to their opposition of the US annexing Greenland. Of course, we're now joined by Erik Solheim. He's the former Minister of Climate and the Environment of Norway. He joins us live from Oslo. Thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure to talk to you as always, Erik. Of course, this is a developing situation. We've just heard from the UK Prime Minister. A well-worded response, not a strong anti-American stance, of course. There was the allegations of tariffs being completely wrong. Given the careful treading where the European allies and Keir Starmer, as we've just heard, have led in their wording towards the United States, how do you think the United States president is going to respond to them?
Look, I believe we now are at a watershed moment because in the last year, Europe, whatever Trump did, Europe said, "Oh, thank you, Mr. President, you are great." And European leaders were flattering Trump. I mean, he showed only contempt to Europe. Europe was flattering him. He put tariffs on Europe. Europe said thank you. He scorned Europe in his defense strategy. No reaction from Europe. And even when Trump, against all international laws, attacked Venezuela, the response in Europe was very, very, very lame. But now I think everything is changing. There is a strong feeling in Europe. I think that Europe needs to respond. Europe needs to straighten its back and respond. And I think if Trump actually puts tariffs on Europe, there will be a response. Europe will try to hit back against Trump's core voters. I mean, he has a vote bank of, say, people in agriculture who are exporting to Europe. Europe will hit back. The tech companies in the US have been firm supporters of Trump, and Europe may hit back against tech companies in Europe. Of course, all of this will be painful. But to respond with nothing when when Trump threatens Europe has brought us nowhere. And if you compare it to response from China, from India, from Brazil, they have handled Trump much, much better up to this point than Europe has. And I think we are now seeing Europe straightening its back.
Eric, of course, some say that this was aggravated by the deployment of troops from these 8 countries which Donald Trump is going to place tariffs on. What do you think of that move? Some of which the UK, who just saw the Prime Minister talking, they sent 1 troop and invited the United States to join the drills as well. Was it really a non-threatening message that Europe was sending to the US with this troop deployment?
It was just a symbolic gesture, of course. Because Trump claims that there is a need to strengthen the security of Greenland. This claim has no basic. I mean, there has been not one military deployment in Greenland refused to the United States by Denmark or indeed by Greenland up to this point. So US has been fully free to do that. The claim that there are, for example, Chinese vessels in the Greenland waters is completely without any foundation. Visiting China very often and never ever any Chinese leaders mention Greenland. There is no interest in Greenland in China. This is about Trump's ego. But we are seeing Europe's now stiffening up, coming with countermeasures, and how this will develop is, of course, far too early to tell.
Are these statements showing that the charm offensive, when it comes to Donald Trump, doesn't in reality work when Donald Trump has his mind on something?
I think we have seen nations very firmly standing up to Trump with success. I mean, when China just counted every Trump trade tariff on China, Trump bended, China didn't bend, Trump bended, and when it came to the top meeting with President Xi Jinping in Korea, it was Trump who looked like he was starstruck meeting President Xi. Brazil is another case. I mean, Trump threatened tariffs to support his friend Bolsonaro, the previous president. The Brazilians didn't bend, and they've come out very strong from that confrontation. And of course, Trump has put any number of tariffs and any number of insults to India. India has not bended, and it stands much stronger from that.
Eric, do stay with us as we move on to our next story. And according to reports, the US president has written a letter to the Norwegian Prime Minister, Jonas Gahr Store, criticising the Nobel Committee's decision to deny him the Nobel Peace Prize. In the letter, Trump stated that since he was not awarded the prize for stopping multiple wars, he no longer feels bound to think solely about peace. He also reiterated his stance on Greenland, asserting that Denmark cannot protect it from Russia or China and questioning Denmark's ownership rights. Trump has repeatedly called for Greenland's acquisition and warned of escalating tariffs on European allies until the US is allowed to purchase the island. Norway has condemned Trump's tariffs threats, calling them unacceptable. Eric joins us once again. Trump is saying that he feels no longer obligated to think purely of peace, though he says peace will still be predominant. This reads like strategic doublespeak. How seriously should the international community take that line in practice, and how do you see the Nobel Committee reacting to this statement?
Look, this is of course completely acting like a child. Who else would be offended that you didn't get a prize? This prize is of no concern also in the big picture of things, which is Greenland. And the focus should be on the fact that there are people living in Greenland. Greenland is not an empty kind of plot which you can employ your things. There are 30,000 people or more living in Greenland. They have the right to self-determination. If they wish to join the United States of America, no one in the world should object to that. So far, there is no such signal. And it's not that, like Prime Minister Starmer says, that this is up to Denmark. No, this is up to the people of Greenland. And they, so far, have shown no inclination whatsoever to join the United States. If they do so, say in a referendum, no one should object to that. But that's the peaceful settlement of this. Ask the people in Greenland what's their preference. I mean, there are many small islands and small states in the world. The fact that you have only a small population, I mean, numerous states in the Middle East or in the Pacific or in the or the Caribbean Oceans are small. That doesn't give you any big power the right to just grab them.
Eric, this comes down reportedly in a letter that Trump sent to the Norwegian Prime Minister. Have you ever seen the Nobel Peace Prize politicized in the way it is being today under President Donald Trump? And how much, say, does the Norwegian government, the Prime Minister, have in who is awarded it?
The Norwegian Prime Minister or any Norwegian politicians have no direct influence on the prize. To the contrary, the committee has on numerous occasions made prizes awarded to people who was not the choices of the Norwegian government. So there is no such direct link. But of course, there has been a mistake by the Nobel Committee over the time. It has been largely always awarded to Westerners. Look, I mean, China, India, and Indonesia, 40% of humanity. No Indonesians have ever got the prize. Mahatma Gandhi did not get the prize. Only an Indian, which is very unknown to Indians, got the prize once. And in China, only an opposition leader, opposition dissident, got the prize. I mean, India is in many ways the center for non-violent thinking of the world. Still, no Indians has ever got the prize, while something like 20 Americans have got the prize. So Trump may believe he deserves this, as so many other American presidents have got the prize, many of them with very, very weak reasoning.
Eric Solheim, thank you very much for taking the time in joining us. It's a pleasure to speak to you. We have some breaking news now coming in, and we stay in the European continent for it. And in a significant development, the Kremlin has confirmed that Russian President Vladimir Putin has been invited by US President Donald Trump to join the newly formed Board of Peace for Gaza. Earlier, the White House unveiled the members of the new Board of Peace for Gaza, with US President Donald Trump serving as the chair. The executive board will oversee Gaza's temporary governance and reconstruction efforts. Key members include former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and World Bank President Ajay Banga. Further members are expected in the coming weeks. So Vladimir Putin has been invited on the Gaza Board of Peace. We will see if he accepts that invitation and pays the $1 billion fee or not. We turn now to the United States, and the US Department of Justice has decided not to investigate the fatal shooting of 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, who was allegedly shot by an ICE agent in Minneapolis on January the 7th earlier this month. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche has confirmed that the DOJ's Civil Rights Unit will not be pursuing an investigation into the shooting. Despite the controversy, the Trump administration has backed ICE agent Jonathan Ross. Top officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance and White House advisor Stephen Miller, have insisted that the officer was only acting in self-defense. In parallel, the DOJ has initiated an investigation into Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey for allegedly encouraging protests that impeded ICE operations. Mayor Jacob Frey has accused the DOJ of trying to intimidate him for standing up for local residents, while Walls has condemned the weaponisation of the justice system. Next we turn to South Asia, and the chief advisor of the government of Bangladesh, Mohammed Yunus, has addressed the issue of incidents affecting minority communities, especially the Hindu community, and the broader law and order situation in the country for last year. In a detailed review of police records, Yunus highlighted 645 incidents involving minority communities, with a clear distinction between communal and non-communal crimes, while 71 incidents were identified as having communal elements, such as vandalism of religious sites. The majority, 574 incidents, were criminal in nature, including theft, political rivalries and personal disputes. Yunus stressed that these figures emphasise the complexity of the law and order situation, with most crimes being non-communal and arising from broader social issues. Yunus also reaffirmed that the government remains dedicated to ensuring safety and justice for all communities in the country. Joining us now is Ambassador Veena Sikri, a former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh. She joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure to speak to you. Bangladesh says it has committed to confronting this crime, this intercommunal violence, with transparency and resolve. Critics say this rings hollow without any independent oversight. How would you assess Bangladesh's record on transparency in criminal justice over the past year?
I would assess their record as very poor indeed. Let me tell you that right from the 5th of August, that is the day that Sheikh Hasina left Bangladesh, Mohammed Yunus himself took charge on 8th of August. But right from the 5th of August, the crimes against people, members of the Awami League, and absolutely indiscriminating, killing them, breaking down all statues were there. And in addition to that were the crimes against the minority communities, not just the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, and even the Muslim minorities like the Sufis and Ahmadiyas, who believe in a softer version of Islam. They were attacked in such an indiscriminate manner that Prime Minister Modi, in his very first message to Mohammed Yunus on the 8th of August 2024, was constrained to mention that the minorities needed to be looked after. And these attacks have continued non-stop without any respite whatsoever. You've mentioned some figures of 600 and only 70 being declared as communal nature. I'd like to know that even from their account of 71, what action have they taken? Not a single FIR has been filed. If people have been arrested, they've been let loose on bail very quickly, and absolutely no attempts. These are willful crimes. They are crimes against humanity. It's a kind of genocide. In fact, the government of India, in their statement at the end of last year, December 2025, had given the figure as 2,900. And this figure was based on assessments made within Bangladesh by this group called the Hindu Buddhist Christian Unity Council. They have a unity council in Bangladesh, and they monitor all these attacks on the minorities. And let me tell you, in addition to the absolutely criminal attacks, the raping, the lynching, the destruction of property, the seizing of businesses. In addition to that, every single minority person, Hindu or Christian, is being eased out of jobs that they have held in the Bangladesh government. From the judiciary, from the bureaucracy, from academia, they are just surrounded and told to go. So in effect, the minority communities, particularly the Hindus, but also all the other minorities, are really being deprived of any participation in the Bangladesh life, in Bangladesh law and order, Bangladesh economy, even policemen, constables who are Hindus. And in fact, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina had taken a lot of steps to recruit more people from the minority communities into academia, into police, into bureaucracy, and so on. And there had been a marked rise. In fact, many members of the minority community had even reached a level of secretary to government in the Bangladesh government.
Ambassador, apologies for the interruption. I just want to hit a couple of points here. Of course, we've got a general election coming up in less than a month. What do you hope to see for precautions, for measures. Now Mohammed Yunus has made this statement coming up to the first general election since Sheikh Hasina's ouster.
Well, I think the first thing to recognize is that these elections are not credible. They're not credible at all because there's no evidence they're going to be free and fair because they're not inclusive. The Awami League has been banned, the activities of Awami League have been banned, and they're being debarred from taking part in these elections for no rhyme or reason. Just tell me any election. Can you imagine in the USA if, the Democratic Party was, for example, banned from taking part in elections? Would it ever be accepted as free, fair, or inclusive? I don't understand why the world is not waking up to the fact that this election is not credible. It's a fake election. It's an attempt to paper over what they have always wanted, and perhaps an attempt to bring the Jamaat-e-Islami, which is the most radical conservative Islamist party, to bring them to power. That seems to be the sole purpose of these elections. And in fact, the people of Bangladesh are very unhappy with that. And they're saying quite openly that exactly what the Sheikh Hasina regime was being accused of, now even the same thing is being done by the interim regime of Mohammed Yunus. So actually, these elections are not going to be acceptable at all to the people of Bangladesh, first and foremost. And I think the Yunus regime should pay much more attention to what the people of Bangladesh want. If he wants stability, if he wants the violence to end, the life in Bangladesh is very difficult. Apart from the minorities, the women have a very tough time. It's unsafe, insecure for them, and they are really facing one of the most difficult periods of life that they have ever seen in post-liberation Bangladesh.
Okay.
And I think all of this shows very clearly that the Mohammed Yunus regime has not been accepted as a constitutional or legitimate regime.
Okay.
They're just there. They've been placed there artificially. They've been sworn in on a constitution that has no provision for an interim regime. And so they need to really take very serious steps to ensure that the elections are inclusive. If they are not inclusive, they have to be free, fair, and inclusive. Otherwise, they will not be credible. And the present violence, the present insecurity, the present instability will just continue and probably get worse.
Okay. Do stay with us, Ambassador, as we move on to our next story. And the United Arab Emirates President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed will arrive in New Delhi today for a visit aimed at strengthening bilateral ties with India. This is his third official visit to the country since taking office, and during his visit he will hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi to explore new strategic partnership opportunities and discuss regional and global issues of mutual interest. The UAE and India have had a strong economic relationship, with trade crossing $100 billion in FY25. This visit comes amid rising tensions between the UAE and Saudi Arabia in Yemen, which has added complexity to the geopolitical landscape. India maintains close relations with both nations, and the discussions will focus on expanding cooperation through initiatives like the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement and the Bilateral Investment Treaty. His visit provides an opportunity to further deepen India-UAE ties, with both countries aligning on many global issues. Ambassador Sikri joins us once again. Ambassador, a state visit by the UAE president to India signals these elevated ties. Of course, this ongoing situation between Yemen and Saudi Arabia remains pretty volatile currently. How much do you expect that to appear in these talks, and what are the strategic priorities for India here?
India and UAE have an excellent relationship between them. The UAE government has the highest respect for Prime Minister Modi, and as you know, he has been conferred the highest civilian honor from the UAE government has been conferred on Prime Minister Modi. This is just an indication of the regard and esteem in which they hold Prime Minister Modi. And President MBZ, as he's popularly called, his visit is really considered a very important visit by India. As you have recounted yourself, we have the intense trade relations between between UAE and India. We have a CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with them. We are stepping up our trade and investment cooperation very directly and significantly. I think most of all, the trust between President of UAE and Prime Minister Modi, they will certainly be having a complete exchange of views on a lot of regional developments in South Asia, in the Gulf, and certainly, as you mentioned, the issue in Yemen will certainly figure, because India has very good bilateral relationships with Saudi Arabia as well. So, we will be, I'm sure, looking forward to learning about the situation, what's happening, and our Prime Minister has always spoken in favor of dialogue and diplomacy. So I'm sure that this will be a very, very important exchange of views from trade, from security point of view, because certainly security issues will be discussed in a major way. And I do expect some significant decisions to emerge from the talks between the visiting president and our Prime Minister.
Okay, Ambassador Sikri, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on the programme, and thank you for taking the time.